Hey, it's Dan here. What we're going to do now is we're going to load a couple of 4590s. I'm going to walk you all through and show you what all we're using. Of course, we got the T7 press up here. And the big perk with this guy is we're able to set everything up. And as you can see, we're running multiple dies here, loading our black powder cartridges. Part of it's pretty standard stuff for whatever it is that you're loading, such as your sizing die. We have a flaring die. This is a ram mount and Armory compression die, a seating die, and we're doing our crimp die as a separate step into the operation.
I might want to point out too that, especially since it's right there in front of me, that that flare die has been customized too. While it's an RCBS outer, the inside of it has been switched out to a new piece so that it actually flares to 458, which will accept the 4590 bullets. The RCBS dies are a bit on the small side.
So some of the other components that we're using here, we got to using KIK powder a few years ago. You can get it in 2F, 3F, 1.5F, 4F. Start now.
Oh, I was just trying to zoom in on it. Go ahead.
But they're one of the cheaper powders you can buy. And as you can see them here, we got them in a little tin that we're going to be loading out of. Can we zoom in on that?
Yep.
It doesn't have the shiny look to it. It's a non-graphite coated powder. So with no graphite coating, you get just a little bit more dust off of it. So needless to say, no smoking while you're reloading, and you definitely don't want to be smoking if you're getting more black powder dust. But this is a pretty good powder. Later on, when weather's fit, we'll do some chronograph tests and stuff, and you can see what kind of velocities and consistency we're getting out of our loads. So we did recycle some Vigilante bullet lube container, and what we have in here is a lubricated felt wad, and these are part of Sterling's load for his 4590 or 4580 government. And what we did was we added a little more lube to these. They were, who was the maker on these?
I believe those started out as Sagebrush. I know you can buy the lubes from Sagebrush, lubed or unlubed. I believe those were just dry felt wads when we got them. They're approximately 100 thousandths of an inch thick.
So they're, you know, pretty good products coming out of Sagebrush. Another one of our loading components is the pre-cut vegetable fiber wads here by John Walters. Excellent products here. If you haven't used them, they save a lot of time over cutting them yourself. And I think we're ready to load some bullets.
All right. I know we got a once fired case set in there, so I'll kind of walk you guys through what we're going to do. So the pad you see there setting to the left of the press is actually a case lube pad, commonly available item. You put some case lube on it. It soaks in there. It's a high density foam, and then you can just roll your empty case over it. That one's actually pretty soaked up, Dan.
Okay.
And but yeah, you just roll your case over it. You get a light film of lube on the case. You can do it with your fingers, but you tend to get some case wrinkles when you're resizing your cases doing it that way. If you're getting an even coating on it, it doesn't seem to wrinkle your cases as bad. So the first step of the reloading process is we got the case lubricated. We got it in the T7 press, and when we actuate the arm of the press, it's going to resize the case and decap it all in one operation. So as you can see, there's no primer left in it. This is kind of a dirty case, so yeah, this will be one of those that we won't intend to really hit anything with, but all my other brass is already prepped and cleaned and ready to go. The tool Dan's using now is actually a primer pocket reamer and cleaner, One end of it will deburr the rim of the primer pocket if you've got burrs, especially if you're recycling military brass for you guys running 30-06 and whatnot. And the other end just has a scraper that'll clean the bottom of it out. There's multiple options of priming brass. You can use a hand priming tool. Lee makes a nice one, or CBS makes a nice one. In fact, I think every reloading company on planet Earth makes a pretty decent hand reloading tool for priming. Personally, I've gotten used to using the tool that's built into the T7 press. Looking down at the press here, it's kind of dark down here, but I think you can see that little arm hanging down. It has a cup on the end of it that's gonna take the primer and then insert it into the bottom of the case. The primers we're using are CCI large magnums. Okay.
So we found that with the bigger cartridges, when we start building a load and stuff, we pretty much go straight to the CCI large magnums. They seem to be hotter than the rest of the stuff on the market, which gives us a really good starting point. We've gotten really good accuracy out of these and are maintaining to use them in our loading. So with the T7, this guy's pretty simple. He just flips up, he drops into place, and I've already rotated here, so we're ready to flare. So I can actually flare my case.
I gotta zoom in here so we can see that primer sitting there.
Can you see?
Yep, there it finally focused.
So I drop a single primer in. He's completely seated.
It seats on the downstroke. So you want to pull that out and show us the primer there?
So we got a nicely seated primer in the case.
Okay. Alright, so the next step is going to be a little bit different if you've never seen BPCR reloading before. We're going to weigh out a charge of black powder, and we're going to powder it outside of the reloading process here. We've pulled the shell out of the turret press, obviously. There's a lot of different thoughts on weighing versus volume on black powder. I do both, to be honest. On my 58 caliber mini ball guns, which are muzzle loaders, I use volume with great success. Dan's been around when I've shot 800 yard targets with my Zouave rifle and hit them with volume reloads. On the cartridge, however, we both kind of noticed they're just a wee bit more finicky. So plus or minus green in a muzzleloader suddenly becomes, okay, we're looking for plus or minus 0.2 or better. So we're going to use a balance beam scale to weigh the charges.
Since we're loading that dirty case, I'm just going to throw 80 grains to make sure I can get them to fit.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. One of the things that usually happens in the case prep process, and I didn't have a cleaned case here ready. All the ones I got cleaned, we've already done. They've already been decapped, resized, flared, and primed. I'll run through and do 100, 150 cases, and then go ahead and powder and seat bullets. So what he's doing right now, we're using a powder trickler to trickle the charge up. Once that trickler gets primed, it'll dispense about 1 grain of powder for every revolution you make, which makes getting an extremely accurate charge of powder very easy.
I think I'm a little bit off.
Or you can just get a few grains in your scoop and chase it up as well. I have a tendency to use a combination of both methods myself.
Come on.
It's looking pretty close there.
A little more. Full 80 grains.
Alright, so what we're doing now, we've got a powder drop tube here. This is a homemade version that I made. You can get them from a couple of different places, Shiloh Sharp's Rifle Company being one of them. All it is a long brass tube with a funnel on the top of it. When you pour the powder down from the top, what it does is it allows the powder grains to align with each other, lock into place, and instead of trying to cram 80 grains in a 45-90 case, which ordinarily won't fit, all of a sudden you end up with plenty of room to work with. And Dan, you poured that one a little fast because I can get 83 in that space.
I did. I poured him a little fast.
Yeah,
of course, we got a dirty case.
Yeah, dirty case, and my powder tube is a little bit shorter than the normal one because, yeah, we tend to go portable with this setup. So we've got that in there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to compress that powder charge. We need to throw a card wad on top of that too, Dan. We are loading what I call my garbage load. I've got one of those little short barrels that's 32 5/8 inches long. And if you don't have enough garbage in there, yeah, it fouls out. And I don't like to clean shot after shot after shot, so it turns into a little bit of a process. Dan's load is a little bit simpler than mine, but not by much. So the powder compression die is compressing that powder charge down to where everything else will fit in the case, essentially. If you don't have enough powder compression, you're going to get a very dirty burning load. And you're going to be swabbing every shot. And it's a dark hole in there, but let's put it this way, that bullet will definitely fit in there now. So the next thing that goes in there is one of the lubricated felt wads. Again, with my short barrel of 32 5/8 inches, I've got to have some additional lubrication. And after that felt wad, we're going to put in a very, very thin card. This is only 13 thousandths of an inch thick. It's actually some old recycled business cards. They're kind of a funky material. Their purpose is basically to keep the lubricant from sticking to the base of the bullet, so that when it goes off, the lube wad and the bullet separate, and the bullet goes where you pointed it, and the lube wad can go wherever.
I don't know if they can see now that I've put that in. We've put a substantial amount of compression on this. Are you getting a look at him?
Yeah, we got a little bit of a look there.
So it's a substantial amount of compression for that powder we're setting, and with our compression, we compress the amount needed to be able to put this felt wad in. And what happens if you try to compress it with the felt wad is you're going to bulge your case out and basically just ruin it.
Yeah.
So that goes in. This guy's going to go in on top. And just so you can see how he sets in there. He goes in.
So our next stage, we're going to seat the bullet. These are RCBS dies for 45-90 sharps straight. I don't particularly care for the way the dies react when you seat and crimp at the same operation. It seems to be set up for smokeless powder only. So all that did was it pushed the bullet into a consistent depth. No crimping occurred. The next die is actually a spare 4570 seat and crimp die, but we've got it set up to crimp these 4590s. The crimp we use on these bullets is a pretty aggressive crimp. If you're used to shooting smokeless powder out of a 4570, looking at this crimp, you're probably going to say, good grief, that's way too much, you're destroying your case. However, if you don't put this style of crimp on a black powder cartridge, you're looking at a powder burn that's going to become inconsistent. You need that bullet to set there for a few millionths of a second while the pressure builds to get a good burn. So that, in a nutshell, is black powder reloading.